Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we once again celebrate the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan and occasionally beyond. And the rundown this week does call for a little bit of a slide just above the border. We're going to peek into Ontario. More on that coming up in just a couple of minutes. Boy, I don't know where you are, what neck of the woods, what part of the world you're living in, but here in my part of Michigan, it has certainly warmed up. We kind of knew that was coming, right? It had been kind of chilly, and we figured, boy, when it warms up, it's going to really warm up. I was sitting in a turkey blind last night, and people say, Avery, how are you still turkey hunting? You've been turkey hunting since the middle of April. I have Southern Michigan Private Land Hunt ZZ, which runs from April 17th right on through the month of May. It's a great tag to have. So that's how I can still be turkey hunting. A couple of nights ago, I was out there hunting at my buddy Scott's place over a food plot with recurve in hand still. A couple of hens came into the food plot, and I called in 6 jakes. Now, keep in mind, I have spent a lot of time in the turkey woods this year. I have put my time in, have not had a shot at a bird, have not had a bird within recurve range. I did have a couple of them within shotgun or crossbow range, but not recurve. And I know my time is getting short because I'm ready to start walleye fishing, and the Angler Quest is now done. Though as we are recording the show, it is not in my hands, but it should be by the time you hear the show. So I knew my time was getting short. I had 6 jakes in front of me. 4 of them were just little, jakes with little tiny beards, but 2 of them were pretty good-sized birds for jakes. I mean, they had about 4 or 5-inch beards. And I told myself, if I do get a shot, if one of these birds comes within range, I'm going to take him. My decoys are out there 8 yards in front of me. I got 2 hen decoys, 2 Avian X hen decoys. The jakes came into the food plot. They came to the decoys immediately, but none of them gave me a shot. So I did not get a shot at a bird that night. I said, okay, I'm going to give it one more chance. Again, because as much as I love turkey hunting, I've kind of had enough, and last night did me in. It was 82 degrees when I walked into that blind. And that is just, in my mind, no fun. It was just a sauna in there. Now, maybe if I try one of the new Primal Tree Stands breeze blinds that are designed for warm weather hunting to give you a lot of circulation, maybe it would be different. But I knew when I went out there last night that it was my last night of hunting. Never saw a male bird. I had 2 hens in front of me for much of the afternoon, much of the evening, but never got a shot. So I am officially putting a fork. I'm putting a fork in it. It's done. My turkey hunting season for this spring. It's been a good season. I've had close encounters. I've had interaction with several birds. I've hunted several different properties. Just wasn't able to let an arrow fly from the recurve at a bird this year. And I'm okay with that. I really am. Every morning, every evening in that blind, I considered a successful hunt. And that's where I'm at. I'm at that point where I don't have to shoot something or catch something to have a good time. But I'm done turkey hunting. And the reason I'm done is because I talked to Brad Dupuis
at Angler Quest Boats, Apex Marine, and he said, Mike, your boat is done. Now, if it's 80 degrees out and the Angler Quest is done, I choose walleye over turkeys. Brad says he's frustrated because the boat actually had been done for a month. They were waiting on electronics. First, it was the in-dash unit, and then it was an autopilot pump. But as I'm sitting in the studio right now, the boat should be wrapped up today, and by the time you hear this show, I'm thinking it'll be in the water. So that's where I'm turning my attention to. In the meantime, I got a little anxious. I had to go spend some money and get some supplies. I got myself a new net. I got 2 nets on the Angler Quest, and on a good day, you'll find yourself using 2 of them at once. One of the nets, the mesh, the rubber baskets kind of held together with zip ties, and I could have just got another rubber basket, but this net was in pretty rough shape. So I got myself a new net, a rubber basket net, which are so good for walleye. I got myself some more lead core line, knowing that the conditions on Saginaw Bay so far, I haven't been out there, but I got a lot of friends who have been out there, and they say it's a whole different world. Crystal clear. We'll talk more about that in the show this week. But if the fish are not going to be in my beloved skinny water and they're going to be out deep, I got to think about different ways to approach them, so I got myself some more lead core line. I bought a whole bunch of new flicker shads. I love flicker shads. I love good old-fashioned Hottentots, but I love flicker shads too. So I bought a bunch of those. Flicker shads are great because they tend to run pretty true. They're not as squirrely as Hottentots. They all have rattles. They're pretty good bait. I really like flicker shads, number 7 flicker shads primarily, and I run a bunch of them, and I bought a few more. I got myself some new dock lines and some new fenders, or are they bumpers? I'm talking about the rubber things that you put over the sides of the boat to protect you from the dock or the seawall or other boats. Here's the question of the day. Are they called fenders or are they called bumpers? I've always called them bumpers. Most people I know call them bumpers. But I think the technical word is fender. If you go online and look to order them, you're getting some fenders. I went to buy some new ones last year at Linwood Beach. I said, hey, I need some bumpers. And they said, you mean fenders? Okay. Whatever they are, I need some new ones. Now, why I bought some last year and need more this year, that's a whole different story that I'm not going to get into. And I also bought a couple of more rods. Now, I need more fishing rods like Eskimos need more snow. But if I'm gonna wind up a couple of 4-color lead core rods, I needed a couple more rods. I think this year what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to have on hand all the time 2 4-color lead core rods, 2 3-color lead core rods, and 2 2-color lead core rods. And if I go the entire summer and never have to use them, that'll be okay, which means my skinny water will have turned on and I'll be able to get some fish in shallow without worrying about lead core. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. I did get some bad news this week. I mean, potentially heartbreaking news. I had been on the DNR website looking at applying for my Michigan Bear Tag, and I am going to put in for Newberry for the 3rd season, even though I hunted there last year. Newberry for the 3rd season to hunt with Johnny Bowler again, hopefully. And I was looking at the website thinking my odds were 50-50 with 0 points going in. Now, if I would apply for the 1st season, my odds would be nothing. But the 3rd season, I was thinking about 50-50. But I talked with Cody Norton at the DNR, who is their bear specialist, and he says, Mike, I did a little research, and statistically, your odds are 12%. What? What? You telling me I got a 1 in 10 shot at getting a bear tag this year? I thought I had a 5 in 10. He said, nope, statistically it's 12%.
Now, Johnny did say a lot of his clients come back year after year for that third season, and they're successful. So that's what I'm hoping. Promo codes. We got 3 of them working now, a 4th one in the works. Save 25% on your MUCC membership by using the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE. Go to Outdoor Pregame, use the promo code Mike20, and get one of those Wraith 270 see-through ground blinds for just $200. Now, anything on OutdoorPregame.com, use the promo code Mike20, and you can get a big discount. And also, if you go to Michigan Brand Meats, if you use the promo code Mike21, you can get a 20% discount on anything on the website. And we're working on one more, but I'm not quite willing to let the cat out of the bag yet. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Dave Kimar of Kimar's Charters, talking about what I consider to be the ultimate freshwater fishing adventure. That's a trip out into the middle of Lake Superior to fish Stannard Rock for lake trout. And then at the end of the hour, I talked about going north, Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. Are we going to be able to get into Canada this summer? In hour number 2, talking about Saginaw Bay and the crystal clear water with Captain Mark Penonziak, Nick Green from MUCC. In hour number 2, Ted Harpham checks in with the Ask Avery segment. What's going on at Darton Archery since the sale? And then we're talking bow fishing and wild game cooking. That's coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. And let's go to Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning Archery has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946, and that means, listen to this, 2021 is their 75th anniversary. Going back to when Roland Boning invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to wooden arrow shafts, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products for target archers and bow hunters. Leaders in innovation. Check out the website boning.com, BOHNING.com. They have a lot of a celebration of their 75th. And as things start to get back to normal, I think they're going to be able to do some of these in person again, so we can get together and celebrate with the folks at Boning. Check out their website for details, boning.com, BOHNING.com. While you're online, I would ask you to check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then head on over to KimarsCharters.com, KIMARS, KimarsCharters.com. Dave Kimar, a guy that I like to talk with every year about this time, because he is one of the guys who pioneered what I consider to be the ultimate freshwater fishing adventure, and that is a trip out to the middle of Lake Superior to Stannard Rock fishing for lake trout. Dave's been doing it for, I don't know, I think 40 years now, but we'll bring him on. Dave, welcome back. How many years have you been out there?
Since 1978.
And if I remember right, you were the first guy to go out there, weren't you?
Well, no, other people went there, but we started going there on a regular basis and taking charters. People had been there long before that, but we started going there regularly, I guess.
All right, you really helped people get out there and enjoy that resource. I mean, even today, it's a heck of a trip, but back then, that was a big, big deal, wasn't it, Dave?
Oh, definitely. It was more of a challenge then than it is now, because you didn't have the electronic equipment that you do have nowadays, you know. We didn't have GPS. Loran was, we didn't have Loran to start with. We eventually got Loran, but of course Loran's all gone now, so GPS is the system.
So you were running just on a compass heading back then?
Compass, just a compass heading when we started, and timing it, calculating the mileage from the charts.
And if you missed it, you had a pretty long boat ride ahead of you.
We had to figure your time factor. We even made it in the fog by compass. Wow. You know, it just took a little longer and being a little more careful, but those were interesting days going there and going all the way out there in the fog by compass.
How far offshore is the reef, Stannard Rock?
Depends on where you come from. It's the most remote lighthouse in U.S. waters. That's why a lot of people who are just lighthouse people like to go there just for a picture. They're the ones that collect pictures of lighthouses. Mm-hmm. It's from us, it's about 45 to 47 miles. It's about the same from Marquette, a little closer from the Upper Harbor. It's a little closer to Big Bay. Depending on where you go from, it's in that 40-mile plus category.
Is that still a working lighthouse?
It is. Last I know it was working. It's no longer owned by the Coast Guard. The Pear watershed has purchased it from the Coast Guard. The light still works. I think the Coast Guard might service it, but it's all automated.
Yeah, I've heard you tell stories before about when it was actually manned by Coast Guard personnel, and what an ordeal almost that was serving out there. Yeah, that, like you say, the loneliest lighthouse in America is what they called it. It was manned until 1962 when their fuel storage exploded and it killed one person, one of the Coast Guard personnel. Afterwards, they automated it. So that lighthouse has quite a lot of history behind it these days. As you say, the lighthouse enthusiasts check it out, but fishermen do as well. What's the attraction of making that long run out there?
Well, it's approximately a 5-mile long reef, and it has a unique fishery where there's enough fish there that you can usually catch fish by jigging or casting using the lighter tackle technique. Some people go out there and troll exclusively, but we try. Our greatest amount of effort is put into either jigging or casting spoons. So you're using either monofilament or Power Pro type line.
And I get that about jigging because you can troll for lake trout anywhere, but jigging for them, I mean, that would be a special treat right there.
Yeah, especially with that Power Pro. When they slam that, there's not much give, so you know that there's one on there. And they do fight a lot better when you're not dragging them along with the boat. As you're trolling, 1 to 3 miles an hour, the fish has less opportunity to fight than he would when you just have them on a fishing pole.
And your lake trout out there are kind of a different strain. They're almost a different critter, aren't they?
Yeah, it's supposed to be another subspecies. They supposedly have a better growth rate than the trout. Actually, the DNR at one point in time took some eggs from there to try and come up with these fish at the hatchery. I don't know how that plan ever worked out.
How is the fishing out there now compared to when you first started years ago?
Well, it's still good, but not quite as good, I guess, to be honest with you about it. I mean, we're going there regularly, and the fishing is still good. But again, it's fishing. I mean, there are days when the fish are very prevalent and you're getting extra fish and throwing them back, and there are days when you're working to catch fish because they're not as cooperative. But we catch fish every trip, obviously. It's just a matter of how many and how active they are.
What about the size of the fish out there?
Well, that's the great thing, the potential there to catch a big one. I heard a rumor that somebody caught a 42-pounder this year. I don't know. It's just a rumor that we brought our biggest fish so far has been a 27, which for a lake trout, that's a very nice fish. We don't recommend on the larger fish that you keep it unless you want to make an actual mount out of it. And, this fish did go to a taxidermist.
Can you bring those fish up out of that deep water and release them? Will they survive?
Well, that's something you have to be careful of, too. Depending on how the fish is hooked, there's no sense releasing him if he's, blown up or if he's, got it down in his gullet. I think you just have to use some common sense in that as far as how you treat that fish.
I think if I remember right, you tell me that reef drops off into hundreds of feet of water, but you're not jigging the deepest part. You're jigging the tops of the reef, aren't you?
Yeah, we're like maybe 200 feet on up, and sometimes we're in as little as 8 to 10 feet,
Wow.
depending on where the fish are. When that water temperature gets around that 45 to 55, which is your optimum temperature for lake trout, that's when they'll be in the shallower water. Sometimes we'll just cast like Cleos or KOs or some kind of spoon like that.
How do you jig 200 feet of water?
Big jig.
Real big.
We use on the average a 1 and sometimes as much as a 6 ounce depending on our drift. Now some days when there's no wind you're not moving, but if it gets a little breezy and you go to heavier jigs so you can hold the bottom. What you want to do there is you let the jig all the way to the bottom and then you work it along the bottom for a while, then you retrieve it and then start over. Now the thing I always tell people is you're always fishing. You don't catch a lot of those fish on the way up with the jig, and some we've actually caught right next to the boat. They followed the jig up and hit it. So you're always constantly on the alert for fishing.
Is there a current down there? There's got to be some movement of the water down on top of on the reef too, isn't there?
Oh yes, on certain days when it's nice and calm, you can see the water rolling right over the rock structures. So there's currents, and of course there's wind certain days.
And, you talk about getting up into 8, 10 feet of water, but your water's crystal clear out there. You got to be able to see the fish that you're fishing for.
If you don't, you can see large numbers of them sometimes. You can, if you have a clear sky and not a lot of ripples on the water, it's easy to see fish when they're in the shallows. Obviously, when they're down in the 100-foot range, when the water's colder, you're not going to see that, but they are obviously in the shallows later on.
So do you like an overcast day better if you're going to be fishing shallower?
It might make a difference. I don't worry about that because we got to go whenever we go.
Yeah. Whenever. And how many times a month are you going out there these days, Dave? You or your crews?
Oh boy. That's a good question. We have a lot of trips booked there for this year, several times a month. Yeah, probably a couple, 3 times a week.
All right. Listen, Dave, I got to take a break. Can you hang tight a few more minutes?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, we're talking with Dave Kimar of Kimar's Charters. Check out the website, kimarscharters.com, kimarscharters.com. They also have a beautiful resort right there on the beach. I'll ask Dave about that when we come back. And then also to wrap up the hour, I'm going to check in with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. Charlie, is my clock off? Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. It is? Oh, I'm a minute? Okay. All right. I cut Dave a minute short. I apologize for that, Dave, but we'll come back to you. Sometimes I do that. We've got 2 different times here on the clocks that I'm working with, and sometimes I look at the wrong clock. Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, I'll check in with him. I really want to know, are we going to be able to get back into Ontario this year? It's a selfish perspective, but I look at these folks who rely on the American hunters and anglers for their source of income. They missed all of 2020. They've missed the spring of 2021, and it's unclear at this point if we're going to be able to get in there in August and go bear hunting in August as well. So this puts a terrible strain on these people. Some of them, I would suspect, will not be able to survive. Would you be able to give up 2 years of income and continue doing what you were? I mean, not everybody can, that's for sure. My name is Mike Avery, the website MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can always reach me via email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We'll take a quick break here. When we come back, wrap up our conversation with Dave Kimar of Kimar's Charters, Kimar'sCharters.com, and then we'll wrap up the hour with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, his website, NorthernWildernessBearOutfitters.com. Stay with us. Lots more coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Tawas and WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And north of the bridge in the Sioux on ESPN 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Rapid River Knife Works, rapidriverknifeworks.us. I am so excited to be working with Chris Durson at Rapid River. Handmade pieces of art that are designed to be used. Chris says, yes, my knives are beautiful, but don't put them up on the shelf. Use them, he says. And I intend to do just that right now. Hey, listen, you've got a knife in your pocket all the time, right? Everybody carries a knife whenever you can, just for everyday activities. I reach for my knife 3-4 times a day, oftentimes more. So you got a knife in your pocket anyway. Why not make it a Michigan-made knife from Rapid River Knife Works? Check out their inventory online at rapidriverknifeworks.us, or better yet, make the trip to Rapid River and check out their beautiful showroom. And by the way, you can buy Michigan brand products now at Rapid River Knife Works as well, rapidriverknifeworks.us. While you are online, please head on over to kimarscharters.com. Kimar's Kimars, kimarscharters.com. We're talking with Dave Kimar right now. Dave, before the break, I mentioned your resort. Tell me more about your piece of heaven right there on the Lake Superior shoreline.
Well, we have 300 feet right on the water. We've been here since 1943.
Wow.
The same location. We keep our boats at the dock, or the docks right in front of the resort. We have a screen porch right on the water where you can cook something on a gas grill, or we have individual, for the 6 cows, we have individual charcoal grills for those too.
How did COVID treat you guys last year? Was it a busy summer for you?
Well, it was slow to start with, with the restrictions they had early, and then as the restrictions loosened up, we became busier. So it was a decent summer last year.
Well, let's hope that people flock to you in droves this summer.
It looks like it's going to be a busy year here in the UP. Last year, for example, the Pictured Rocks in Munising, which is only 18 miles from us, had over 1 million visitors.
Wow.
So, with that kind of people in the area, we should have a great potential for people to go fishing.
Well, good deal. And speaking of fishing, Stannard Rock is a huge draw for you, obviously, but you've got another option. I mean, you are running fishing charters a lot closer to home there, too, aren't you?
Yeah, we can go out 3 to 5 miles and fish what we call the Shelter Bay Flats out there. So you're not, you don't have to leave at the wee hours and be gone all day. A lot of people just with a family, they only want to go out for 4 or 5 hours. So we do that also. And we also can go to the Big Reef, which is about 25 miles out, about half the distance it is to the rock. And in that case, we're usually trolling, but there's a potential there for some large fish, too. There's some big fish that come off the Big Reef.
What about in tight there, closer to shore? I mean, is everything lake trout? You're not salmon fishing at all, are you?
Well, we do run some surface lines or some different planer boards, or maybe using some your leaded lines and catching an occasional salmon or steelhead. But everybody doesn't realize that they don't stock Lake Superior salmon because we don't have the whitefish. We don't have the alewife population for the fish to feed on. So salmon don't really do extremely well here. We do get some from the early stocks natural reproduction that were done back in the 60s, so there's some here, but it's kind of sporadic.
When you're trolling for those Lakers, I mean, the old school way of trolling is to bounce cannonballs off a sand bottom, but yours is all rock. You can't do that, can you?
No, where we are, we are working off a sand bottom. The flats out there is a sand bottom. So we still use the old school techniques that I started using back in 1967.
I love the fact that you've been out there so long. The hours on the water, the things you've seen, the stories you could tell. It's got to be a lot of fun for people just to sit around and shoot the breeze with you.
Yeah, I get in that old fart category and talk about all this stuff.
Well, listen, Dave, how old do you have to be an old fart? I think I'm getting there close to there myself.
I just turned 76.
You got me by a few years, but I'm leaning towards that category. So listen, I always enjoy our conversations. I think of that trip to Stannard Rock as the ultimate freshwater fishing adventure. But one caveat, I mean, if somebody comes up and they want to book that trip with you, you better book multiple days, right? Because your odds of getting out there when you want to are not always the best.
Well, some people do book 2 days, one for the rock and maybe one for the reef or a local, so that they have the alternative of picking the better day. But I can't just say that you can, if we can't, we have to make both days work one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
We can't sacrifice one day because we try to book full. So, that would be an option they could do, yes.
Well,
we do a fairly good success rate on getting out.
Oh, do you? Okay.
We're about 75%, 70%.
Oh, see, I'm actually quite surprised it's that high. So that's a testament to your experience on getting out there, that you can get out there 75% of the time. That's great to hear. Dave, listen, it's always a pleasure. I'll send people to your direction, kimarscharters.com. Head to the resort, book a trip, head on out to Stannard Rock, and spend some time talking with probably one of the most interesting captains out there on the lakes you're ever going to see. Dave, appreciate your time. We'll talk again.
Enjoyed talking, Mike.
Same here. We'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, a good friend of mine. I've hunted with him for more than a dozen years now. I want to get back, as many people do, into Ontario hunting and fishing this summer. Is it going to happen? Does Ron have any insight? We'll find out after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM, also WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. While you're online, also head on over to northernwildernessbearoutfitters.com. That's the website of Ron St. Louis and his company, Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. Ron is a guy I have hunted with for more than a dozen years now. I always look forward to my yearly bear hunting trips to White River, Ontario, Canada. Of course, last year we couldn't get up there, and there's a big question now about this year, and I wanted to check in with Ron and get his perspective on this. Ron, welcome back to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike.
So listen, what do you know, my friend? Do you have any more insight up there into what's going on than we hear down here?
It's slow. It's slow compared to like the vaccinations and things opening up. Right now, we're still in a lockdown, like stay-at-home order, and they just extended it till June 2nd.
Oh boy!
So there's no camping. We can't camp on Crown land. We can't. You can only, if you're going fishing, you got to stay within, your town, like in, reasonable to get out and have exercise and stuff like that. But other than that, they're pretty much shut down. Like if you live in southern Ontario, you can't travel north to go hunting. You have to stay bear hunting. You have to stay in your area. They don't want anybody traveling.
Wow.
Just to try and get the numbers down. Our numbers went right back up, and then they're slowly starting to come down now, but. Before we see any restrictions being lifted, it might be mid-June, and then they're slowly, like our restaurants aren't open. There's nothing. Nothing's open.
So are you optimistic at all that you can have your bear hunts in August, or are you kind of writing off another year?
Yes, that's because I spoke to the M&R, and I don't know, it's up in the air right now, but with the restrictions and everything going the way it is, I don't know. It's too hard to tell. Like for us to make that decision. Like right now, they're thinking like everything's still being shut down. All their events, everything's being postponed till next year. So they're thinking late fall before anything opens up. And if the borders do open up, I hear some, but there's some governors that want it open, but I think it's just access. Like if you have property here, family here, try to ease restrictions if you have both vaccinations. But here, I know a lot of people that haven't even gotten one yet.
If you were going to have your August hunts, you'd be starting to bait here real soon, wouldn't you?
Well, that's the thing. We'd be getting ready to the spring was a write-off. I knew that right off the bat. So it's just roll it again into 2022 and then hope the best. I think 2022 will be fine. Everything should be back to normal. Everything will be. But for the fall, it just. I'm not. I wouldn't bet on it. That's for sure, because with everything the way it is, I can't see them opening up the borders without everybody being vaccinated, and it's just too hard to tell.
Ron, this is 2 years now you guys have missed. This has got to put a terrible impact on all you guys up there.
Oh, it does, and I've spoken to some outfitters that have big lodges, and they're not opening this year. They did last year, but this year they're not. Just can't afford to. And I feel bad for a lot of those, those big outfitters that the flying remotes and that, because that's all they do. They don't have other income, or if they go 2 years, if they go this whole year again, I mean, they're going to be hurting.
Yeah. So what are you doing with all your? I mean, you've had hunters booked. There's going to be such a demand for 2022. Are you even going to be able to handle them all?
Well, I do. What we did is everybody that we had booked for 2021 or 2020, then we rolled them into 2021 this year. And then if it doesn't happen this year, we're going to roll it into next season. But I've had a lot of phone calls, can I book and that? I book them in, take their name and number, but you just can't book more people, because
sure
everybody's coming. Everybody's going to be coming in 2022 if we're not having a hunt in 2021.
Well, if there's any good news out of this, you're going to have some big bears when we get back up there.
Oh, it's Mike. It's crazy the amount of bears right now. I went for a ride last evening just to about 10 miles out of town, and we saw 5 bears.
Huh.
And I hear guys talking and said, hey, we go to work at the mines every day. They're about 20 miles out, and it's nothing for them to see 10 to 15 bears every trip.
Wow.
Yeah, there's the numbers are going to be up, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, Ron, I think about you guys all the time. I mean, I miss coming up there and seeing you guys, but I think about the economic impact and everything else you guys are dealing with. I pray for you guys. I hope things open up, and when they do, we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, and I hope everybody stays safe. That's the biggest thing right now is let's just get through this whole thing, and it's going to be like a reunion once we get back.
It sure is. Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters, the website northernwildernessbearoutfitters.com. A great guy, great place to go. I'm looking forward to getting back there whenever we can. We'll take a break for the top of the hour right here on Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue this weekly 3-hour journey into the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan, a celebration of hunting, fishing, shooting, trapping, and all things wholesome, all things fun, all things biologically sound, all things ordained by God. If you want to go down that path, and I'm welcome to do. I'm eager to do that as well. This is first and foremost a radio show, and I bring this up every week because it's the lines between broadcasting and podcasting are getting more and more blurred all the time. Everybody has a podcast, and I think that's great. But there aren't that many outdoor radio shows out there. So I like to make the distinction that this 3-hour weekly radio show is heard on almost 30 stations across the state of Michigan. And I think that's the best way to listen to the show if you can. Because it for one thing, the broadcast stations get the content of the show before I release the podcast. But if your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that the podcast version is out there? You can hear the podcast just about anywhere. I mean, just about anywhere online. I put it up on the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. MikeAveryOutdoors.com, kind of the online clearinghouse for all things Outdoor Magazine and Mike Avery Outdoors. And I think here in the next couple of months, we're going to do a little bit of a refresh on that website. I put it up on the Facebook page as well. You can find us on Amazon Music, on Audible. I put it up on Twitter, though I don't think anybody goes to Twitter. Twitter to me is absolutely kind of useless, but I put the podcast up there anyway. It's on LinkedIn, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player FM, Deezer, Radio.com, and even YouTube. Why do I put it up on YouTube? Well, because people listen to it on YouTube. Anywhere you get your podcasts from, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. Also, each month, I produce podcasts for Jay's Sporting Goods, Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Killer Food Plots, Polar Craft Boats, and Shadow Hunter Blinds. And today, when we're done with the radio show, we will record another Angler Quest podcast and another Shadow Hunter podcast as well. So check those out if you get a chance. And I do appreciate you being along with us. There's a lot of different content out there these days, and it's wonderful. Your choices for what you want to watch or listen or consume media have never been, the choices have never been greater. And I'm glad to be still a part of being able to produce content after 40 years in broadcasting. I am very, very excited because I talked to Brad Dupuy at Angler Quest, and it looks like, after a lot of stops and starts this spring, the boat has been ready for a month, but we're waiting on some electronics and some other equipment. By the time you hear this show, I think the Angler Quest will be in the water on Saginaw Bay. I love Saginaw Bay. I consider it to be my home body of water. I have fished Saginaw Bay since the walleye in the early 80s when the walleye population was resurrected by the DNR and the sportsmen's groups around the bay. I don't pretend to be an expert angler. I don't even pretend to be very good, but I have a lot of fun with it. And I've got a lot of experience out there. But my years on Saginaw Bay pale in compared to Captain Mark Penonziak of Reel Fishing. Mark grew up on that bay. He has seen it evolve and change. And this year, Saginaw Bay looks different than it ever has. Is it because of the dams? Is it because of lack of rain? I don't know. But let's talk with Captain Mark Potonzik right now about that. Cap, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. I appreciate you inviting me on the show today.
Well, listen, it's a real pleasure to have you here because I don't know of anybody who has more experience on that water than you do.
Well, Mike, I grew up on the beach in Linwood. I've been fishing out there for, 55 years. So I've seen a lot of things come and go on the Saginaw Bay, that's for sure.
And what are you seeing out there this year? It's a different critter this year.
It definitely is. So with the clean water, we usually see it every spring. As soon as the ice leaves, the water is usually crystal clean and we can see bottom. I used to run around in the spring a lot, actually with a good friend of ours, Captain Dan Mannion. We used to run around on his jet boat, and you could see bottom in 18, 20 feet of water.
Yeah.
And then about a week or two after the ice left, then we'd start getting that flow of water coming out of the Saginaw River, and then it would dirty it back up, or what I consider dirty, and it would kind of dirty that water back up, and that's not happening.
Is it because, and this is the 1-year anniversary of the dams blowing out? Are you attributing it to that, Mark?
So obviously, I'm not a scientist, but after being on the water for as long as I have, the water has. None of us have ever seen this before in our lifetime, right? You haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I've never seen the water this clean ever in 55 years for this time of year. And I know the zebra mussels have cleaned it up some, but I attributed this mainly to obviously lack of rain, but to the dams being out, because ever since they've been out, we've had very clean water. Last fall was clean. This is clean. I think it's pretty obvious personally myself.
What kind of visibility are we talking here?
Depending on the days, you can see 18, 20 feet down.
Wow.
It's scary.
That's not the Saginaw Bay I know.
No, it's not the Saginaw Bay I grew up with either. So I think what it's going to do is going to change the way we fish it. No one knows exactly what all we're going to have to do, but I think that shallow water bite's going to be very difficult, that you love.
No, you're breaking my heart. Don't even say those words.
I know, but I think it's going to be very tough, because the reason why that shallow bite has always been really good on the bay is because we've had cloudy, dirty water. Those fish can stay in those weed beds. You get to go fish them, and it's phenomenal fishing. Now with the water beating straight through to the bottom, and 18, 20 feet of water straight down, it's going to be a very interesting year.
Well, it certainly is, but I keep thinking about Lake St. Clair. Lake St. Clair is crystal clear, and they have phenomenal walleye fishing. They just know how to do it.
No, that's very true, and I think we are going to have to change a lot of our tactics that we've been using for years. All the things I've been doing for years and years and years, pulling spoons, flicker minnows, hot and tots, and all those things, it may not work as well as what it has in the past. And I know a lot of guys are switching over to crawlers this year, and a lot earlier than ever before, and being successful dragging the bottom.
Mark, I'm going to have to let you go, because if you're telling me I got to run crawlers to catch fish, we're going to cut this interview short.
I haven't run crawlers in 10 years, my friend. But I'm going to tell you what, the guys pulling crawlers right now are doing really, really well compared to – I'm not saying you can't catch fish. Don't get me wrong. You can still go out and catch a fish or two. But I think we have to change our tactics. So I don't know if you remember this, but back in the 80s, we used to fish strictly at night in the spring.
Yeah.
Because it was the only way we could catch fish. We hadn't figured out how to catch walleye in the spring. And I know a lot of guys, the younger guys, are just like, are you crazy? But back in the day, there would be 200, 300 boats out at night out of Linwood. At that time, it was Hoyles, but Linwood Beach Marina, and we'd be fishing at night. No one fished during the day because we couldn't figure out how to catch them.
I'm so glad you brought this up, because I've had this conversation with other people before, that again, the DNR and the sportsmen's groups around the bay, they reestablished that walleye fishery, but nobody knew how to catch them. In fact, at one time I was working with the local news station, and they had us go out in a Coast Guard cutter to watch the commercial fishermen pull up their nets that were full of walleye, because they wanted to prove to anglers there are fish here. You guys just need to learn how to catch them.
And that's 100% correct. I remember, like I said, it was in the 80s and 90s that we would go out in the springtime at night and fish shallow water, which you can do right now. If you go out at night, you can fish that skinny water and catch fish. I did it last year when we were shut down due to COVID. I ended up doing that last year because I couldn't fish with anybody else. So I fished by myself. I didn't get actually that good of advice, but from the other fishermen I was with. But, when you're fishing by yourself, you get what you get.
That's right.
But the fishing was phenomenal at night. And we used to fish at night all the time back in the day. And
Mark, listen, Mark, hey, listen.
Phenomenal fishery.
I got to take a break, but I want to continue this conversation. It's Reel Fishing on Facebook, REEL. No website. Is it just on Facebook?
Yes, sir.
All right, Reel Fishing, and Reel is REEL. Fishing is FISHN on Facebook. You can find more about Captain Mark Potonzik, one of the most well-known and most well-respected and longest-running captains on Saginaw Bay. He says it's a different year out there. I will be finding that out firsthand here in the next few days. I wonder, though, if when it starts to warm up, if we get a little bit of an algae bloom, if that will help. Something we haven't looked forward to in the past. Maybe we will this year. I'll ask that and more after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY. That's 1240 AM and 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. That's MUCC.org, MUCC.org. And if you want to save 25% on your membership, either your first time signing up for MUCC or your renewal, use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, and you can save 25%. In fact, I used my own promo code, did the same thing, and saved the money. And actually, I'll be honest with you, I gave them a little bit extra, too, because I knew it was a tough year financially for them, as it has been for many organizations. And I think they're doing a great job. So I support them. I would encourage you to check them out as well. Also encourage you to check out Reel Fishing, REEL, Reel Fishing. That is the Facebook page of Captain Mark Penonziak. He has been, he grew up on Saginaw Bay. He's been fishing that bay forever. And he says this is going to be a very interesting year for whatever reasons. We think lack of rain, the dam failures upstream. The bay is crystal clear, which is not what we are used to seeing. Now, the folks on Lake St. Clair are used to this. The rivers, the lakes up north are used to it, but Saginaw Bay, no. So, Mark, one question I have is, I wonder when the water temp comes up here, in the next few weeks or so, if we don't get a little bit of an algae bloom, which in the past I haven't been a real fan of, maybe this year it'll be our saving grace.
I think you're right, Mike. I think it'll keep the fish around longer, and I think that's the other thing that we really don't know the answer to this either, is the fact that as the water warms up, traditionally, in July, actually, it usually warms up, gets pretty warm, and those fish leave the inner bay and go to the outer bay. With the water being as clear as it has been this year, and with the sun being 80 degrees this week, how quick are those walleye going to leave?
Oh, man. Yeah. You're raising some great questions that could, we could see a completely different fishery than we've had for the last 40 years out there. Well, 30 years out there.
Exactly. I've been fishing walleye on the bay since I caught my first walleye in 1977. I was a 17-year-old young man, and that's when I caught my first walleye. And I have seen walleye leave the inner bay as soon as June 23rd. That was the quickest I've ever seen them leave the inner bay. We couldn't hardly catch a fish after that. Wow. It was a year that was really hot, and the fish left real quick. But usually they stick around, mid-July, late July, something like that. But we'll see what happens this year. This whole year is just going to be very, very interesting.
Well, it is. It's going to be interesting for a guy like me who wants to go out and catch fish. But for a guy like you who has paid clients that expect you're going to go out and catch fish, it's going to be challenging.
It really is. And I think the biggest thing that we can do as, and not just myself, but all the other guides up here on the bay is just be honest with our customers. We're going to have good days. Don't get me wrong. singing the blues or anything like that, because we're going to have a lot of good days. There's days when we're going to catch our limit, and there's days we may only catch 3 or 4 fish. One day they're going to be in one spot, one day they're going to be in another spot. So it's going to be tough on all of our guides. I know I have a real good crew that I work with, and we share a lot of information, and we try to keep everyone on fish, all the guides, and that's the key for us. It's going to be essential this year.
So what's your advice for the weekend warriors, the recreational anglers who come over, who are used to catching fish on Saginaw Bay in a certain way? What should they do this year?
I think so. What I've done over the years since I've been, fishing the Saginaw Bay is just to have a really good, close-knit group of guys that share information. I think sharing information is huge, especially for people that come from out of our area, is to have a group of people you share information with. And it's not just guides, it's just people that fish. Because the people that fish in different areas. But I think you need to come with a complete arsenal, from crawler harnesses to spoons to flicker minnows to Hottentots. You better have it all to figure out what they need, what they want that day.
I've noticed a couple of times you say flicker minnows, not flicker shads. Flicker minnows are your body bait of choice?
To be honest with you, I really don't use many flicker minnows or shad, to be honest with you. I work with a different company, Salmo, so I use all their Salmo hornets and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it just depends. I mean, it's just a depending thing. You have to give them what they want when they want it. And I don't think you're going to be able to drive around aimlessly like we have for the last 5-6 years and pick up your limit fish. Those days are over.
So in general, probably, unless something drastic changes here, you're looking at fishing deeper water than we're used to, deeper in the water column than we're used to, maybe switching over to crawlers, that type of thing?
100%. I hate to say that, but so back in the day when I was a kid, we used to fish a lot of weed beds. All right, so we would cast to weed beds, which hardly anyone does anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone's just out trolling because you can just troll aimlessly and catch fish. But back in the day, we used to fish a lot of weed beds. We would cast to weed beds or the outer edge of weed beds because those fish would hide in there. So that might be another trick up people's sleeve that they could start doing too.
I remember you and I had a conversation on an offshore tackle podcast not too long ago, and you talked about trolling the weed beds, and that really got my attention because up there in my beloved Skinny Water, later in the season, that gets weeded up and almost impossible to troll, yet it's full of fish in a normal year. And you had some advice for me.
Right. Basically what we do is troll just slightly above the weed line. So if the weed line's a foot down, literally a couple feet off the back of the board, and you will catch fish there. Those fish hide in those weed beds, and they will come up for bait. So you just got to stay just slightly above the top of the weeds, and you will catch fish.
I mean, I have fished as close as 6 feet behind the board, but 2 feet, man, that's crazy.
It is, but it works. You have to give the fish what they want. You have to think differently these days, especially with the change of the bay and what's going on here. You have to change your whole game plan. Whatever you thought about fishing the Saginaw Bay, you pretty much got to change it and start all over again. So for an old dog like myself, there's some new tricks up the sleeve that we'll be using this year, some different tactics. I might do some casting, a few different things.
And that's very interesting, that you have to take a body of water that you've fished forever and figure out new ways to fish it. And I can't get away from these weeds. I'm thinking there's a lot of potential up in there. Now, are you trolling crawler harnesses over the tops of the weeds? Are you getting body baits down there? Are you trolling spoons in there?
So you really can't get the spoons, body baits mainly over the top, casting over the top of them, floating baits over the top. That's what I'm going to be trying this year. You're going to see my boat in some very, very different places that I have never fished, publicly before. You're going to see me in different places this year. I'll guarantee it.
Different places and maybe different times a day.
Correct. we had to adjust. One of the things we had to do, and I know you talked to Lance and some other guys on the Detroit River, we had to change our tactics on the Detroit River because it was really clean. We didn't get the winds we usually get. So I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning going jigging in the dark, which I've never done in my life down there.
Yeah, you guys had a challenging spring down there early on, didn't you?
Yes, we did. It's the same reason. The water was, it's not the same reason. We had the same conditions, I should say, because we had really, really clean water. We never had a northeast wind on Lake St. Clair to dirty the water up. We all had southwest winds, northwest winds, which never, ever got the water dirty, which made the fish go down deep just like they are here. So we had to change our tactics. If my guys wanted to jig, we had to leave at 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning. That by the time the sun came up at 7, the jig bite was over. And I hate to say this out loud, but because I used crawlers to pull down the river to catch fish. I'm not lying. We did. I hate to say it, but I had to do it.
I tell you what, it sounds to me like 2021 is gonna be a year is gonna put you to the test wherever you go.
Oh, it has been. And when you talk to all the other captains, and we're all down there, we're all scratching our heads, trying to figure out what we needed to do to be successful, right? Because people are used to coming down to the Detroit River or the Saginaw Bay, eat both the same, right? Trying to do the best we can to put people on fish, and traditionally both these places our catches are very good, 20, 30 fish trips. That was not that. It was a little tougher this year. We had to work for them. They weren't jumping in the boat. We had to do different tactics and do different things and think outside the box. I hate that term, but you have to do what you have to do to catch fish.
Well, exactly. And listen, I'm not ready to give up on that skinny water yet. Normally I can go in there, I can put my boards real close to the boat, I can put my baits real close to the boards and catch all the fish I want. What about just doing like Brad Dupuis does and putting my boards in a different time zone, putting them way off to the sides of the boat, which I'm not used to? Is that type of thing We're going to have to think about too?
Yep, that's things you're going to have to, especially with the clean water, especially in skinny water. If those fish are going to stay in there, but I think...
And they're probably not, right?
Well, if you do it in the evening, I think you'll do really well, Mike.
Yeah.
I think instead of going to bed early at 9 o'clock, you might have to stay up till 11.
I can stay up past 9 on a good night. On some nights, I should say.
Not every night.
Not every night.
Or get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to catch fish.
Oh, well, hey, listen, if that's what it's going to take, then that's what I'm going to do. Mark, I appreciate your time. Good luck. It's going to be an interesting year.
I agree with you 100%. And one thing, Mike, I will bring up is I really wish they'd do a study on the Tittabawassee River to see what kind of things actually happened on that river.
Yeah.
With the dams busting.
Yeah, well, the more we can learn, the more we'll know how to address things. Captain Mark Penonziak of Reel Fishing. You can find him on Facebook, Reel Fishing, REEL Fishing. One of the best out there, and lots of insightful information. And some of it a little bit disturbing. When he mentions going to night crawlers to catch fish. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Nick Green from MUCC checking in. And then after that, this week's Ask Avery segment brought to you by Security Credit Union. Checking in with Ted Harpham of Darton Archery. The question is, what's going on at Darton since the sale? We haven't heard much. We'll try to get that info and more right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sandusky on WMIC. It's 95.3 FM. I'm sorry, 660 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM and in Lansing, WILS 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Speedy Blaze. Speedy Blaze is a safe, clean, water-resistant, insect-resistant alternative to firewood. I was with Ed Bolanowski and Sherm Hubbard of Speedy Blaze last weekend, and I learned more about their grilling pellets. This was really cool. I watched Sherm cold smoke some cheese
and man, is it good. I'm going to give this a try using their new grilling pellets. Very, very cool. We burn Speedy Blaze in all of our patio fires as well. Clean, burns hot, easy to start. Check them out online at speedyblaze.com. That's speedyblaze.com. While you're online, head on over to MUCC.org. That's the website of the Michigan United Conservation Clubs. Nick Green is their Chief Information Officer with us this time around. Nick, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me again, Mike.
Always a pleasure, and I know you guys are always busy. What's going on these days?
Yeah, so we're kind of still riding the high of last week's Natural Resources Commission meeting where the acquisition of the Crystal Waters parcel in northern Monroe County was announced. So that's going to be 680 acres of new public land in southeast Michigan.
This is interesting. So was this a private property before, or what's the history?
It was. So it was a quarry that I believe about 5 years ago was probably taken out of operation, and maybe 6 years ago. And since 2014-15, MUCC has been very involved in trying to get that property acquired through the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund, which collects oil and gas royalties from extractive industries on public land. And this has all kind of come to fruition here in the last couple of weeks. So we're very excited to see that property be acquired and to see how the DNR, plans to kind of put their management efforts on the ground. That area, the counties bordering that acquisition have about a quarter of the state's population, and the next closest public land is 30 miles away. So this is, an area of great need, and I think it'll be, opportunities for duck hunting and hiking and deer hunting, turkey hunting, fishing, just getting outside and recreating.
Well, that's the first thing I thought of. Boy, it's in a part of the state where it certainly will be used. But you say it was a quarry. I'm thinking they're going to have to do a lot of habitat restoration, improvement to make it suitable for the types of activities you're talking about, Nick?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the actual what the ground looks like, but obviously, quarries, they'll have lakes or not lakes, but water holes, and that'll be an 80-acre piece of water there for fishing. There's plans to plant cool season grasses, create hiking trails. So kind of what management efforts need to be done are really still kind of, being discussed through the department, and we'll kind of learn more as that property becomes opened in the months to come.
This is exciting because all too often we hear about land that was available for public use in whatever way being sold off to private individuals or companies. Now, this is just the opposite.
It is. This is a huge deal, and 680 acres is a pretty big parcel down there, like I was talking about, in an area where there just isn't public land. So it's, as we've learned through COVID, Michiganders found respite in the outdoors and being able to get outside, and we hope this trend kind of continues on, and this acquisition will certainly aid in that.
Are we seeing, or is it too early, are we seeing any indication that renewed interest in the outdoors is carrying over to 2021?
Yes, we are seeing some license sales still up. I think next year will be a little better of a predictor because things will, knocking on wood, things may be a little bit more back to normal. But as of now, we're seeing that continued increase in engagement, and we're hoping that our DNR and stakeholders like MUCC can continue to try to keep those folks engaged and keep them as licensed buyers of the future.
Speaking of getting back to normal, are you guys there at MUCC? Are you going into the office yet, or are you still all remote?
We are still mostly remote. We have a few staff members, such as myself, when things like Michigan Outdoors Magazine need to be put together. We're in the office. But I think as of now, tentatively June 1, we're planning on trying to be back full time. That's all subject to MIOSHA guidelines and figuring out kind of all of the state procedures we need to follow. And
when can we expect to see the next edition of the magazine?
The next edition of the magazine will publish June 1. I suspect it will start landing in mailboxes probably later this week or early next week.
So is it put to bed, or are you still putting the final touches on it?
No, it's put to bed and was sent to the printer in early May.
That's got to be a good feeling.
It is. It is always a good thing to get that off my plate.
Until the next one that comes around.
That's true.
All right, Nick, always a pleasure. Keep up the good work. Nick Green of MUCC, the website mucc.org. By the way, if you want to save 25% on your membership, either signing up for the first time or your renewal, go to mucc.org and use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, and save 25% on your membership. Now, it's not an expensive membership to begin with, I'll be honest with you, but if you can save 25% and put your money towards a good cause, why not? mucc.org, promo code Mike, all caps. We'll take a break here. I was going to say for the top of the hour. No, when we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, and the question is, what's going on with Michigan-based Darton Archery since the sale? We haven't heard anything. We will ask Ted Harpham that coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you, each week by Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. Each week at the end of the second hour, I field questions from listeners about topics you would like to see answered. Either they can be directed at me, they can be directed at somebody in the DNR, they can be directed at somebody in the outdoor industry, and this time around, that's exactly what it is. I have had several people contact me, and the best way to do that is using the email, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And they've said, hey, Mike, we know that you're tight with the guys at Darton, Michigan-based Darton. We know they were sold a few months ago, yet we're not hearing anything coming out of there now. If you go to the website, there's not a lot of information. And I've been very curious. What is going on with Darton Archery in Hale, Michigan, after the sale? So I thought, I'm going to go right to the source and talk with Ted Harpham of Darton, and he's with us now on the phone line. Ted, welcome back, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, listen, a real pleasure, but I've been very curious too, Ted. I mean, you guys have been kind of quiet. What's going on up there?
Well, Mike, we're ready to just about unleash the beast. We've kept it kind of a low key. We've been redesigning, re-establishing, recreating some new benchmarks for Darton. And, now that the involvement and the new ownership with Black Eagle and Randy Kitts and his team, it's been fantastic, by the way, to work with and do stuff and keeping the plant right here in Hale, Michigan. But, we've got a couple of new bows. We've got a new crossbow line. We also have a new compound line. And that's until we really get it up where we wanted it to be. We didn't want to say a whole bunch. We just wanted to kind of go with the punches. But now it's all coming to fruition. And wow, that's all I can say.
Well, when are we going to see him, Ted?
We're going to actually, Mike, we're shooting to have new bows at the shoot in London, Kentucky, the first weekend in June, which is one of the larger ASA shoots in the country. And by the way, we're sponsoring that shoot. And then you're going to see lots of stuff, hit the airwaves. We've got Jimmy Lutz shooting for us right now, the number one seed in the U.S. team, shooting at Darton and performing very well. We've got some other pros out there that are shooting our stuff. But we're building new hunting bows. We're building new target bows. We've got a new riser design. We've got new cam system that's a more balanced and cam system. We've been known for years to lead the industry in technology and performance. Well, we've taken that to the next level. From a customer's perspective, from a shooter's perspective, is this going to feel like a completely new company, or is it going to feel like good old Michigan Darton? It's going to have a little of both. I think the friendly atmosphere, our customer service, and what we have to offer here at Darton Archery is unmatched in the industry. And I think that what you're going to see now is bows and manufacturing and, handmade. I mean, these new bows, Mike, I'm telling you right now, we've been doing some test shooting here at the factory with them, and they are shooting unlike any other bow we've ever manufactured. The speeds are better, incredibly quiet, zero hand shock, zero vibrations. I mean, you just don't even know the bow goes off.
Ted, I got to be honest. I'm actually thinking about putting down the recurve and picking up a crossbow. I know that's blasphemy in some people's minds, but you said the crossbows are getting redesigned too?
Yes, Mike. What we've done is, along with the bow line, we've redesigned the crossbow line. We've done the same thing. We've gone to a wider limb platform, so there's more stability. There's much less vibration, super quiet. We've got a high-performance cam now on the Toxin 100 RD, which means reverse draw. So we have a reverse draw bow now, which gives you axle to axle at 8.5 inches. With the Toxin 100 that, in previous years past was a 330 foot per second bow. Now we're shooting 385 to 390 out of that bow.
Wow.
Okay, so, I mean, it's really gone to the next level. And the beauty of that is that you can get that bow for $799. So, and that bow in any other platform in the industry today is $1,500 to $2,000.
Well, so what should we do, Ted? Keep an eye on the website and the Facebook page, and
absolutely. The website is being reconstructed and completely gone through, and it's being updated literally hourly.
Okay.
So as things come through, we got the Toxin 150, we got the bow fishing bow, the Splash, which is going to be another incredible bow for us coming through again. So for the bow fishing guys that are out there on the bay or around the country, it's an amazing bow fishing bow too.
All right, Ted. Well, listen, I'm glad things are still going well. I got to be honest, I was starting to get a little bit nervous, but you have given me my confidence in Darton back, and I'll look forward to talking again soon.
No, don't lose that. We got you, Mike.
All right. I appreciate it. Ted Harpham of Darton Archery, the website, dartonarchery.com. Keep an eye on that website and the Facebook page for some big announcements, it sounds like Ted says, coming up here in just the next few weeks. And, of course, thanks to our friends at Security Credit Union for helping to make each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Ted mentioned bow fishing. Well, we'll check in with Josh Damron from the Michigan Bowfishing Association. And, of course, wild game chef Dave Miner will wrap up the entire show with another great wild game recipe. That's coming up in hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by J Sporting Goods, the Yider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, The Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Shadow Hunter Blinds, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Yes, indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. So glad to have you along with us as we continue our celebration of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan. There are so many outdoor recreational opportunities in this state. And I've said this so many times. It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love living here, and I love being an outdoorsman in the state of Michigan. It seems like there's no limit almost to the different things we can get involved in. So many that you kind of almost have to pick and choose, right? Like, so I kind of choose bear hunting and turkey hunting and walleye fishing. Those are my top 3. Just because by the time you get through with doing those, you got to pick and choose, I guess is my point. But there are a lot of things out there. I mean, we're still turkey hunting, right? People are salmon fishing now. They're trout fishing now. They're still looking for morels. They're walleye fishing now. But you know what else people are doing here in our state? They're bow fishing. You might say bow fishing? What is that? Well, maybe you've heard it called carp shooting. But there's a lot more to it than just carp. And I'll tell you what, bow fishing has evolved into something that I never thought it would get to this level. I mean, it's getting big. And the folks who know a lot more about this than me are the folks at the Michigan Bowfishing Association. Their website is bowfishbam.com. And Josh Damron is part of that group, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Josh, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Listen, tell me a little bit about your interest in bow fishing. Is this something you just picked up, or have you been doing it forever?
Oh, well, I guess I'll go back to the beginning. Me and a couple of my buddies, when we were younger, used to spear suckers in a little creek down the road from us, and I was trying to figure out the legality of it all and opened up the book back in the day and seeing that you could actually shoot them with a bow. And I really liked to bow hunt at the time. So I was like, yeah, let's give it a try. So,
best of both worlds.
Yeah. So we gave it a run and it was all over from there. So
what was your first rig like? Were you shooting a recurve? Was it a compound, or and is it similar at all to what you're using these days?
Oh, doesn't even compare to what I'm using nowadays. So, but I started off. I had an old Browning Rage. I think it was a Rage. I had it as my deer hunting bow when I was 12 years old or 13 years old, one of the two, and I went to, I believe, Dunham's at the time and got an old drum reel for the front of it and an arrow and put it on the stabilizer, and we were plinking at suckers. So
there you go. Well, that's one of the things I like about bow fishing is you can kind of use whatever you got. I mean, yeah, we can take it to the next level like you guys have, but if you got something that'll throw an arrow in the shed or garage, you can probably turn it into a bow fishing rig.
Absolutely, yeah. All my buddies had their grandpa's old bear bows or a recurve they got off an uncle or something, or their dad or whoever, and one guy just had the old school Fred Bear tied a line to the back of an old aluminum arrow and had his dad weld on a couple barbs to the end of it and shot away. So
actually, a recurve's not a bad choice, is it?
No, it's not. One of the guys I shoot with used to shoot with a recurve all the time, and now that once we started getting more and more into it, he kind of stopped, but we still got that recurve for when we take someone new out. So,
well, Josh, tell me about the Michigan Bowfishing Association.
Yeah, so we're an association for the state, and we're work with MUCC to keep for the conservation side of it and everything else, and they kind of help back us and give us a good backbone for issues that may pop up. But I would say we're mainly a tournament type organization, but we do keep the interest for the whole entire state for anything that may pop up. We're nearing the end of our season so far. We kind of scheduled all of our shoots this year for a lot earlier in the year since we didn't get to shoot them last year with COVID, but we kind of help keep the interests and protect the interests of all the bow fishermen throughout the state.
I think you do a great job in generating interest and promoting the sport. I mean, I feel like that's one of the things that you guys really focus on is letting people know what bow fishing is all about and trying to encourage people to get involved.
Yeah, and we have our youth shoot. It's actually our next event that we have, and that would be on June 12th. So we got a good little break here, and it's kind of well needed after every other weekend, or seemed like every weekend there for a little bit of going out. So
where have you guys been this spring?
The kids involved is excellent.
Absolutely, getting kids involved. I'll talk about that in a minute. But where have you guys been this spring, Josh? I mean, I know of the one on traditionally on Saginaw Bay, but you shoot some inland waters too, don't you?
We do. Kind of the trend in bow fishing right now, especially tournament-wise, is bigger boundary waters and getting people out and allowing them to trailer. So not necessarily doing the bass fishing shotgun start off of one location, which kind of evens the playing field for the whole entire group. So we started our year off on the west side of the state. So with the big boundaries this year, it was 127 West, and that was a big 30 event. And we actually hosted that down in southern Michigan and Calhoun County. One of the other guys on the board, he has a chicken farm down there and a lot of fields, so we just hosted it there and threw all the fish in the fertilizer, the spreader, and just spread them out across the field. And then our second shoot was on the Grand River, and the cutoff was near Ionia all the way to the Pear heads. And that was a bitter cold event, but we had a good turnout, and everyone had a good time, and I think pretty well everyone at least shot some fish, even though the water was super cold. But this year with the lack of rain, the water is just so low.
Yeah.
And then we had our last event on Saginaw Bay for the west side. So the cutoff line was the Saginaw River, but we took the Saginaw River 275. So you could shoot the Saginaw River 275, and then all the way up the west coast of the Saginaw Bay to the mouth of the Augrey. The rock pier heads there.
I like this idea of opening up the boundaries because then people can, maybe concentrate on water that they're more used to shooting, maybe closer to home. I like that concept. It's kind of like some of the big wintertime predator tournaments are doing things like that these days.
Yep, exactly. And doing a shotgun start, for someone who's into it like me and traveling all across the country to shoot, it's not that big a deal. I got a bigger outboard, a bigger boat, so I feel confident running it across Saginaw Bay if I had to. Whereas, someone who's getting just into it or whatever might have a smaller boat, and it's just not as safe for them to run across a big body of water or whatever. So it just kind of keeps everyone safe, and it gives everyone a chance to go shoot their own waters or go shoot their own hole or whatever they want to do. So.
And then you come back to a central weigh-in spot? Okay.
Yep, so we have a central, or we try to keep it central, but it's just kind of hard to find places still that are letting you be host an event. So for this year, we kind of had it wherever we could have it.
Oh, you mean like
convenient
because of COVID? You mean?
Yep.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
So when you tell people you got 100+ people for an event, they kind of get a little leery about it.
Yep,
so.
I understand. I want to talk more about shooting the rivers. I understand, the big shallow bodies of water like Saginaw Bay and the inland lakes. I get that, but a river, that's an interesting situation there.
Yeah, it can be a spot that a lot of guys don't really think about, but especially right now with the water being down, it's a very good spot to go out and try to target carp or suckers at.
But it's got to be harder, though. I mean, you got current, you got, I don't know, it just seems to me it'd be a lot harder than shooting a body of water that isn't moving like a river is.
I always tell people, you have to either be really handy or be able to know someone who can work on it on your boat, because especially shooting a river, you're probably going to hit something. And I know when we shoot rivers, we bury the boat up into log jams or brush piles or whatever to try to get up into them. So there's a lot of scratches and a lot of paint needs to be touched up on the boat, it seems like, after a river tournament.
I bet you're not running fiberglass boats, are you?
Absolutely not.
Hang tight, Josh. Did you really?
Yep.
Oh, man. Hang tight, Josh. Listen, we got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Josh Damron of the Michigan Bowfishing Association. Their website, bowfishbam.com. That's a cool website, isn't it? Bowfishbam.com. About bow fishing. You might think of it as carp shooting, but it's a lot more than that. And after the break, we'll talk with Josh about some of the different targets these guys shoot. And he said something earlier that made me think we need to follow up on this too. What do you do with these fish once you take them out of the system? You don't want them to go to waste, so what do they do with them? We'll talk about that and more with Josh Damron of the Michigan Bowfishing Association after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Their website, bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com.
You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS, and you can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM 99.7 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Wilds Plumbing and Heating. Plumbing, heating, air conditioning, sump pumps, ductwork cleaning, you name it. Boy, based on the way the weather has turned, I need to get the guys from Wilds over to do a pre-air conditioning season inspection on my furnace / air conditioning unit. And I think it's time to clean out the ductwork, too. I mean, I said last week we did some home improvement projects, which resulted in some drywall dust, and you know that stuff gets absolutely everywhere. So now that we're done, I hope and pray we're done, that it'll be time to clean out the ductworks, and I think the guys at Wilds would do a wonderful job, as they have before. Check them out online at wildsplumbingandheating.com. That's wildsplumbingandheating.com. And if you call them over, don't be surprised if whoever shows up might want to talk a little hunting and fishing, because a lot of these guys are hardcore hunters and anglers, or maybe it's just me. Maybe they just want to talk hunting and fishing with me, but give them the opportunity. They'll do a great job for you, I promise. Right now, we're talking about bow fishing. What is bow fishing? Well, it's a kind of a combination of fishing and hunting, because you're targeting fish, but you're using a bow to do it. It's kind of the best of both worlds. We're talking with Josh Damron of the Michigan Bowfishing Association, their website, bowfishbam.com. That's bowfishbam.com. Josh, we used to call it carp shooting, but there's a lot more than just carp involved, right?
There are.
What else?
Long nose gar. You can't shoot spotted or short nose. So the ones with the long noses, you can shoot those. A large variety of suckers, everywhere from a giant buffalo sucker to little, we always call them stone rollers, but little rock suckers. Then you can shoot dogfish. And then in Saginaw Bay, there's a plentiful amount of goldfish. You can shoot those as well. And then grass carp, which are starting to pop up more and more, it seems like, in Michigan, especially in the southern areas. So you are seeing those, because grass carp are actually an Asian carp. They're not the type we're worried about, but you are seeing those now, huh? Yeah, they're in that Asian category. Any carp is technically a Asian carp, or is originally from Asia.
Yeah,
so
good point.
Even the common carp are from Asia originally, which a lot of people don't really understand it, because they've been just naturalized so much in our waters. So, but grass carp are starting to show up now, every now and again. Most of them aren't making their way from like the Great Lakes or whatever. Most of them are from ponds and such that have flooded, that people have had. The DNR right now is kind of on the fence about fully claiming that they're in spots, but they know they're there. So,
well, this whole concept of flooded ponds is the same way we got the silver and the big head carp that we're so worried about. So this is interesting.
Louisiana is where all that stuff started.
Absolutely. So, hey, listen, you were talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
So the DNR, what they do is they take a jawbone sample and they're able to get a DNA from it. And I believe most of them that come, especially on the west side of the state, I'm in the southwest side of the state, they've traced them back to Indiana. So they have the same DNA as some of the ponds and stuff down in Indiana. So because it's pretty much the southern rivers that really have them, and they're very few and far between. You could go out there 100 times and never see one.
Okay.
But
that's still very interesting.
They can't not deny it now. So, and they are popping up in Erie and on Detroit River and such. So it's only a matter of time before they pop up that way. And actually, we shot a tagged carp last year. They tagged a common carp, where they're trying to get studies on fish movement. But me knowing what I know, the common carp completely move. Their movements are totally different than a grass carp, but they're at least trying to do something to figure out what's going to end up happening.
Yeah.
So
you were talking about shooting gar, that you can shoot some types of gar, but not others. Is it hard? Is it hard when you got a split second to look and see what that is to identify it?
Luckily, the long nose, you can tell a big difference between a long nose and a short nose or spotted. A short nose and spotted pretty much look exactly the same. It's you just count the number of spots that it has, and if it has so many, then it's considered spotted versus a short nose. But the long nose stick out very easily compared to a shorter or long nose. And it's weird because the west side of the state, we predominantly only have short and spotted gar. So every once in a blue moon, you'll see a long nose, and it's like, holy cow, there's long nose gar. But on the east side, it's predominantly long nose gar.
Is it, is it a concern to misidentify? I mean, because once you let an arrow go and if you hit that fish, there's no taking it back, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can't do anything about accidentals, and it's just where having someone who's more experienced on the boat, it really helps because, someone starts to pull back on a bass or something like that, let's say, and a bass kind of looks like a dogfish, and if the water's muddy, they kind of have a similar head look to them when they're that far down. But it's once you do it enough times, you kind of realize what it is. But I mean, accidents do happen, unfortunately. But it's just like if you foul hook a nice bass, or if it swallows the hook, you just kind of unfortunately know it's not going to make it.
Yep.
So accidents happen.
We were talking earlier about what to do with these fish. Now, generically, we kind of link them into that. We put them into the category of trash fish, which I don't really like that title. But even so, I don't want to see them get taken out of an area and then go to waste. What do you guys do with them?
So I'm close to the guy that I live within probably 20 minutes of the guy who took them all for our west shoot. I predominantly take all my fish to him, and then they spread them across their fields for fertilizer. For tournaments and such like that, just recently, as of last year, we were able to get it passed that we can donate the fish. Before that, we couldn't donate it to anyone who would potentially be making a profit. So all the guys over the last however how many years who had donated them to a farmer just gave them to a farmer, and he put them in their field, and as fertilizer, he ended up making a profit off of it. Technically, we were all probably doing illegal things in the DNR's eye, but that's been rectified, and we can now donate them without having to have a commercial fishing license.
So they're going into fields or gardens or whatever. They're not just going into a dumpster behind somebody's business.
Correct. Yeah, we would have been the East 30. We had a guy come, and he's wanting to try to render them down to use for fertilizer. So he came and got a whole trailer full. Sometimes when we're at the bay, there's a raptor, like an eagle, osprey rehab place, and they'll come and grab some fish if they have a bunch of birds to feed the birds or any other thing. So we try to make them go to as good of a use as we possibly can. But on big events like that, sometimes they just end up going in a hole, or we end up having to get a dumpster and they just get taken to the landfill. But I would say a majority of the fish, and especially last year and this year, all of them went to a good cause and either went for fertilizer or for animal rehabilitation facilities or wherever. So
are most of your shooting, is most of your shooting in the daylight or at nighttime?
For our events, they're pretty well all at night. The Great Lakes Bowfishing Championship, which is going to be coming up in a month or so, that's a day event. Right now is the perfect time to get out there and do some day shooting. The carp are spawning. I've all the way from up north by you guys to down here, and it's all started basically this week. So with this warm weather coming in and the nice sunny days we've had the last few days, they're splashing. So
I'm thinking about rolling up on these things after dark with your lights and lighting them up. It's got to be a different world, and it's got to be surreal sometimes. And what you see in that water, it's got to sometimes be surprising.
Yeah, absolutely. not this last term, but the one before that, we hit a V8 engine in the water that someone dumped in. No clue how it got there. We were out on Lake Erie and no idea how it got there, but we found it. So we ended up hitting it with the boat. But yeah, my cousin, he calls me all the time if he knows I've been shooting around home, and he'll have a bass tournament. Hey, where's all the good spots at? Where's all the big bass been in?
Well, I got to believe, too, I mean, monster muskies, maybe sturgeon you're going to see once in a while, depending on the water where you're at.
Yep. We've seen a sturgeon on Detroit River a couple of years ago, but they're usually hanging out a little deeper than where we're at. So,
how deep of water can you shoot, by the way?
So my boat, we can get into about 3 inches of water. So anywhere from 3 inches of water if we're shooting dogfish or goldfish to, every little carp or even bigger carp with their back sitting out of the water to anywhere as deep as as much as you want to pull back on your bow. So I would say 12 foot would be about the cutoff line though for an ethical shot.
Well, and you start getting in several feet of water. I mean, you're not aiming where you think you're supposed to be aiming, are you?
No, and the farther out they are, the lower you got to aim. And so you most definitely got to aim low. Whenever I take someone new out, I always say, if you miss low, you're doing good. If you're missing high, then keep going lower. So I always tell people, if you miss low, you put a good shot on it, especially someone new. So.
Well, Josh, I appreciate what you guys are doing. I really love the way you're pushing and promoting the sport and trying to get new people involved. The website is bowfishbam.com, bowfishbam.com. Check it out for events coming up, and you can get in touch with the people there. And I've never met a bow fishing person who wasn't interested in getting people involved in their sport. So, Josh, keep it up. Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you. And as a reminder, we got our youth shoot coming up, and it's on the website. And if you got a kid and don't have equipment, get a hold of us, and we'll get them outfitted. And if you don't have a boat, we got room on boats, and let's get the kids out there.
Perfect. That's a great way to end this thing. Bowfishbam.com. Thank you, Josh Damron. It's another sport it's another way to get kids involved in the outdoors, right? And think about this. You take a kid out deer hunting in the cold. He may or may not see a deer. He may or may not get a shot, and he's got to be quiet and still. You take that same kid out bow fishing. He's going to get a shot. He's going to get a bunch of shots. He's going to see a lot of fish, and he can be as loud as he wants. Which one is going to be more appealing to a kid? More about that after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. You know, you can hear the show on almost 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WMIQ in Iron Mountain. That's 1450 AM. What else do we have? Oh, yes, our stations in Saginaw and the old, what we used to call Tri-Cities, WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. I am in their studios right now, by the way. But for the 3 hours I'm here in this one particular studio, it's called the Outdoor Magazine Studio. And I have a logo behind me to prove it. I also have Charlie Root in here, who is doing a wonderful job, as always. But I got to be honest, this time of year, Charlie gets a little, he's thinking more about baseball than he is about doing this show. Sometimes, and I get it, I understand, Charlie, you're still doing a great job, and I appreciate it. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by my friends from Reader Landscaping. Oh, what is Reader talking about this week? I just pulled it up. I want to make sure I get the right thing here, give you the right information. Pools, stopping moss from taking over your lawn, and summer containers. That and much more. The guys from Reader were at my place just yesterday. They were putting down some kind of, I don't know if it was fertilizer or insect control or both. But Reader can take care of your lawn and property like it's your own. They take the pride in their work like they're working on their own property, and they do a great job. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's Reader, R-E-D-E-R, readerlandscaping.com. bowfishbam.com. I want to follow up on a very, very interesting point made by Josh Damron of the Bowfishing Association of Michigan, bowfishbam.com. And this is a topic that gets talked about a lot, right? And the outdoor media tends to concentrate, and I'm guilty of it too, concentrate on things like deer hunting or big game hunting or bear hunting. You know, you're sick of hearing me talking about bear hunting. But think about this. If you take a kid out bear hunting, how many bears is he going to see, and how many chances is he going to have to get a shot at one, and how quiet does he have to be waiting for that opportunity? Same thing with a deer. And it can be frustrating for a kid, and they're going to say, why? Why do you want me to do this? Dad, grandpa, mom, whatever. Why are you pushing me so hard to get involved in this hunting like you're talking about? I don't want to be quiet. I don't want to go out in the cold. I don't want to sit there for hours and not see anything, and I get that. But if you take a kid out bow fishing, it's a whole different ballgame. That kid is going to let more arrows fly in one evening, night, daytime, whatever, session of bow fishing than they will in 10 years of deer hunting. Maybe 20 years of deer hunting. There's action. They're going to shoot a lot. Yes, they're going to miss a lot, and that's part of the fun. But they're going to see a lot of different things, and they're going to see a part of this outside world that we don't often get to see, especially if it's like a nighttime shoot. And think about this. You go up into these shallows with these big lights on your boat, shining them into the water. And this is a world this is a window into the underwater nighttime world that we don't normally get to see. How fascinating would that be for a kid? Like, fascinating for a grandpa, even. So check out their website, bowfishbam.com. That's bowfishbam.com to learn more about their youth shoot that is coming up, and lots more, in fact. Let's see what else is on my list. Boy, as we are in the studio now, we've certainly got a warm spell here in the great state of Michigan. Warm enough that I've actually given up turkey hunting. I was sitting in a blind last night, and it was 82 degrees when I was in the blind, and it was absolutely miserable. The other reason I have officially wrapped up this spring's turkey season is that the Angler Quest is done. Now, as I'm here in the studio, I don't have it yet, but it should be in the water by the time you hear this show. I'm quite optimistic. I talked to Brad Dupuis of Angler Quest, and he says she's pretty much ready to rock. I got some bad news this week, though. I was thinking that my odds of getting a third season Newberry Bear Tag this year with the number of points I have, which is 0 because I hunted last year, was 50%. Looking at the DNR's website, you can go on there and they give you an idea of where you stand. I read this as saying my odds are 50-50. I thought, well, that's not bad. Talking to Cody Norton from the DNR, who is their bear specialist, he says, Mike, I did a little research in those numbers, and your odds are actually 12%. 12% on getting a bear tag. Now, those are not the numbers I was looking for. But Johnny Bowler, the guy that I would love to be hunting with again, says it's common for him to have people come back year after year with 0 points and get that third Newberry season. So there's still hope. But there's only hope for a bear or an elk tag here in Michigan if you apply. You've still got some time, but the deadline is either May 31st or June 1st. I don't know, but it's coming right up. So if you want to apply for the mystical, magical Michigan elk tag that none of us will ever get, now is the time. Or a bear tag as well. I always say you're better off to apply for the Pure Michigan hunt. If you want an elk tag, apply for the Pure Michigan hunt. And I know that by applying in the standard draw for a Michigan elk tag and going bull only, antlered only, that I am really screwing up my chances, but that's what I'm going to do. If I'm going to hunt a Michigan elk, I want it to be a bull elk. And I know that it's never going to happen. I will see a unicorn riding on a rainbow before I will ever get a Michigan bull elk tag. But you got to apply. You got to apply, right? We'll take a break here for we'll take a break here for the last segment. When we come back, wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner will join us, and maybe he's got a unicorn recipe. I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but we'll find out after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine.
recognize that music? I do. I should hear it in my sleep. I hear it so much. But I don't. My dreams are consumed by fishing and hunting for the most part. So I'm pretty lucky. Most nights I sleep pretty darn good, and that is indeed a blessing. Also a blessing to have wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner help us wrap up each week's show. And guess what? He's here once again. David, welcome back. How are you?
Very nice, Mike, and yourself. I'm enjoying this weather to no end.
I don't know, Dave. I was mowing the lawn the other day, and I thought, man, it's hot. And then that night, I went out turkey hunting, and I sat in a blind, and it was 82 degrees, and I said, I'm done. This is not turkey hunting weather. I'm done.
I hope others done better than me.
Yeah. You know what? I had a good season. I had an interesting season. I did not get a shot at a bird, but I was out there an awful lot this year, and now I got to be honest, I'm ready to start walleye fishing.
You know, I'm ready to do anything. I know I'm working on the restaurant, and that's pretty time-consuming. We're going to try to open up relatively soon. I don't have a set date yet, but we're working at it fast and furious.
That has me so excited, so optimistic, Dave.
Me too. I had a friend of mine works for the alarm company, Bruce. Also, him and I talk fishing a lot every time I see him, and he's a heck of a nice guy, and he's a crappie guy from way, way back. Him and his kid love crappie fishing, and they do a lot of it on Houghton Lake and other places. And I told him I'd give him a shout-out for all of his kindness.
You just did.
Oh, that's right.
How about a recipe, Dave? What do you got?
I got a wild turkey, seeing how it's near the end, and I think we could probably stop and go to other things after this. It's a wild turkey breast steak with pear sauce. And I've made pear sauce with, like, chicken, and I've done this with tame turkey, and it comes out pretty darn good. So what I like to do is take about an 8 to 10 ounce breast steak, cut it across the grain, so you get about, it depends on how big the turkey is, actually, So you're going to put it between saran wrap, plastic wrap. If you're going to use, the best thing to do is take a bread wrapper, turn it inside out, and make sure that the painted side is not touching the meat. So when you pound it down, you have to pound it down relatively thin because it will have a tendency to draw up and not really cook evenly, and it doesn't have the good eye appeal you're looking for. So once you get that done, you're going to dredge it in flour, and you could season it if you like. A little salt and pepper would be fine if you so desire, but it's a little sweeter sauce that we're going to be doing. So you're going to pound it out in a real nice hot pan. You want to caramelize this meat with a little bit of olive oil. So brown that off on both sides. Put that in an oven-proof casserole. You probably can't do more than 2 steaks at a time. So if you're going to do 4 portions like we're going to be talking about, you're going to have to do it in batches. Wipe the pan out a little bit. Now, the ingredients are going to be a couple ounces of Frangelico liquor. You can buy them in the airline bottles, them little small 1-ouncers, so you don't have to buy the whole pint or whatever you're going to use, and a little bit of a sweet cream sherry. And if you're not going to do that or you're opposed to using it, just leave it out, So then you're going to need a jar of turkey gravy, or you can use chicken gravy, either one. A small can of pears drained. You can dice it up and save, if you're going to use the halves, save a few, and then you're going to make slices 3/4 of the way through so that you can fan it out for the decoration at the end, And then you need about 3 ounces of heavy cream, a small to medium onion diced very fine, and you'll need the olive oil and the flour. So we've already dredged it in the flour, used the olive oil, brown the meat off. It's in a casserole. You're going to take the onions and saute that up slowly. You don't want to brown them. You just want to break that flavor loose so they're transparent. You can add the sherry and the Frangelico and the gravy and the diced up fine or the pureed pears. We cook that up, bring it to a nice rollicking boil, taste it. And if that's to your flavoring, pour it over the turkey breast, bake it uncovered because you want to kind of reduce that down somewhat. Oh, it's going to take 45 minutes to an hour. you can test it. If it kind of comes apart with 2 forks or a fork and a knife, it's by all means done. So almost at the end, that's when you want to add the heavy cream. Stir that in, and if you so desire, you could put a couple pats of fresh butter in there, and that would really give you a real nice velvety kind of a sheen to the sauce. So it really adds to the eye appeal. Killer sauce, man. You can do this with duck breast too, also, and goose breast. You pound them out also. Get them nice and thin, brown them off, and then bake them like that. But you're going to bake the duck breast and goose breast either rare or well done so that it's tender. There's kind of no in between, as we all know. So then, after you place this on the plate, you're going to take those.
Better do it quick, Dave. Quick.
Fan them out and be done. Enjoy. Sorry I didn't get a turkey.
Yep, the man.
You didn't get one, too.
I didn't get one, but I'm laughing because you wrapped it up so quick. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Miner. The guy, when you give him a time cue, man, he takes care of it. And I look forward to the restaurant reopening. I also look forward to talking with you next time right here in the Outdoor Magazine radio studio. In the meantime, check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, all the social media outlets, and you can always reach me via email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Oh, enjoy the weather. Get out and enjoy this great state of Michigan. We'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.